Welcome to Daily Armour. Today I'm going to be in Isaiah chapter 58, looking at verse number 13. This is our last if, and then our last verse will be verse 14, and it'll give us some thens. But let's look at this last if, and that if, when you see that if, we know that's a conditional word, that it comes with some conditions. This is a warning. God's got our last warning. Isaiah is saying, these are some things that you can have and experience and be a part of, but they come with some warnings. They come with some ifs. There's some conditions. God has no conditions for his love. We don't have to do anything to achieve his love, but he does require us, after we are following him, to be obedient to him. He wants us to be faithful children. He wants us to be respectful children. He wants us to heed his authority and what he wants for our lives, because we ultimately know he knows best. Because he knows everything. And so whatever he has planned for me, whatever he has planned for you, it's going to be better than whatever you have planned for yourself. But let's look at this last if. Let's look at verse number 13. And it says, "If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words." The Isaiah is saying that the Lord's got some wonderful things in store for me and in store for you, and he's got some things that we should be a part of. Not just our actions, but our attitude. I want you to notice some of the phrasing. This is not just in that outward that we're doing, but it's also that inward attitude of why are we doing this, or are we coming within the right with the right attitude, with the right spirit. So if thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day. In other words, if you stop your work, if you stop your normal routine, and you say, I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna go to the house of the Lord. I'm gonna pay my respects. I'm gonna worship him. I'm gonna honor him. I'm going to set aside this day. God said this day is holy, that this day is something he said to set aside for us, not to be in that rat race every single day, going, doing, achieving. But if we turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy own pleasure on my holy day, listen at that. So you're saying that foot, that's where you're going. That's what you're doing. You're going to church. You're going to fellowship with the Lord where he chooses. And I know people say, I can do that at home, but you don't. It's something different. It's the Lord is saying, you have to make the effort. You have to make that path. You have to trot in that path to where he says to go, what he says to do. And he says that that this day is holy, and that it's set apart and it's set aside for him, not for us. It is a day of rest, but it's not just a day of rest. It's a day to reflect, to remember, to show respect to the Lord, to refresh yourself with the Word of God, to refresh yourself with even in repairing some attitudes and repairing some actions. You're hearing the Word. You're going to be convicted about some things. You're going to be like, oh, you know what, I'm getting off track a little bit. And even if it's just a little bit, it doesn't take long that when you get off track, and then you'll be, a few days, weeks down the road, you're way off in left field. But if we see ourselves veering off and like, oh Lord, and then we're coming right back, until we're, we have a change in attitude and actions, whatever needs to take place. So the Lord is saying, you're gonna not do your own pleasure. There's lots of things that you can do on the Lord's day. There's lots of things that I could do on a Sunday. I could go shopping. I could go boating. I love to go ride the roads and just traveling and seeing new destinations, new places. I love doing that. Finding those little back roads and, exploring this or that, or visiting this or that. I love to get out and do that. I'm very adventurous. I'm very outgoing. And yet that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to do my own pleasure on the day that God says, this is my holy day. This is the day that I have set aside And I've set aside for you to rest, for you to reflect, remember, show me some respect, refresh yourself, repair some things. Sometimes if we don't stop long enough, and that's a lot of times why we don't want to stop. You don't want to stop sometimes. You don't want to go to church because you're like, ugh, I'm going to have to deal with some things. The Lord may have a message for me that it's not going to be exactly what I want to hear. Everything is not, rainbows and roses. But with that comes those rainbows and roses. He knows how to give us that along the way, along our journey, but we have to stop and show him that respect that he so deserves. Look at what it says. It says, and call the Sabbath a delight. So there's that attitude. It's not just that you're going to church, but what kind of attitude do you have behind? Is it a delight? You may say it's a delight. Is it a delight? Do you begrudge going? You're going and you're like, I'm going again. I would so rather be in the bed. I would so rather be out on my boat. I would so rather be going shopping today. I just learned about a new something that I never been to before, a new restaurant. We could try that. It's supposed to be a famous burger or barbecue or whatever it is. Or a new seafood restaurant that we haven't tried yet. We ought to go there. There's so many things that we can do. So when you set aside those things to go show that respect to the Lord, to go to do those things that he wants us to do, where he wants us to stop the rat race. He wants us to stop the all of the selfish things that we want or to achieve, or that we feel like we have all this responsibility and I have to work and I have to get that overtime because I've got this coming up, I've got that coming up, and I've got myself in a bind. I got to get myself out of a bind. And all of those things are things that I've heard and experienced, that pressure. But whenever we say that, we don't just say it's a delight, but when we feel like it is a delight, when the attitude is correct, when, Lord, I do have a desire to go to church, even when I'm aching, even when I don't feel good, even when that I'm tired. And sometimes I'm telling this body, we're going. I don't want to miss something God has for me. There's been so many times when that was all I needed to get me going, when maybe I had a bad night or I woke up in a tremendous amount of pain. I still have so much trouble with my hips from time to time. I'm out of adjustment right now. Lord willing, I get to go get an adjustment tomorrow and maybe I can get that hip pop back out. I'm in a tremendous amount of pain this morning, but if this was Sunday, I would still be going to church. I'm not going to stay home why? Because I'm afraid I'm going to miss something. I don't want to miss out on what God has. Because like I said, whatever, boating, traveling, a new restaurant, just riding the back roads, whatever those things that I enjoy, that I find to be, pleasurable and fun and exciting. My husband loves to go to SeaWorld. He loves to go roller coasters, those kind of things. When I say, you know what, Lord, those would be fun, but I would so much rather see what you have for me. I don't want to miss out on what you have for me. We can do that some other time. But I want to experience what God has for me, and I don't want to miss out. And when we have that kind of attitude and we're saying this is not that time where I need to be, thinking about self. I need to go and see what God has. I need to, be open and have attentive ears to what he has, not just hear the word, but then heed the word. And so when I'm calling the Sabbath a delight, when I'm saying the holy of the Lord, he's honorable, and I honor him by doing what he wants me to do, by setting aside that time that he wants me to set aside, then I'm getting lined up with him. And then this is a reminder, this last 3 little phrases that Isaiah's put in here in chapter 13. He's reminding us of those things that we're not to do. Not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words. In other words, what does that mean? That means I'm not going where I want to go. I'm not doing what I want to do, and I'm not saying what I want to say. but I'm setting aside all those selfish things that I want, and I'm saying, God, you're more important. God, your plan is so much better than my plan, and Lord, I don't want to miss out on something that you have for me, and so I want to be there, not just in action, but also in attitude. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again soon.